Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Founders Only podcast, where we hear from founders and learn about their experiences, lessons, and challenges that they face while they're growing their business. Today, I'm super excited that I have one of my dear friends, Russ Brown, joining me today as a guest. Russ is a real estate agent, a team leader, and owner of RFB List. He's also a real estate developer, a real estate investor, and he owns a property management company as well as a construction firm where he manages over 100 properties. Russ also is the chairman of the Housing Providers Association, which is a 2,500 member organization that represents the interests of small landlords who offer the housing choice voucher program for their properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a mouthful. Yeah.
Right. And he's also instrumental in helping to represent landlord interests in the development of policy and improvement of policy for low-income housing in DC. Welcome, Russ.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned, this podcast is really about hearing from founders and business owners and entrepreneurs to understand how, what they've experienced as they've been growing their business, scaling their business, what types of challenges they've faced and what lessons they've learned, what wins they've had, what experiences they've had. Also, how they've developed personally and transformed personally in the process of developing their business, which I think maybe you and I both know there's a lot of personal development that happens as your company grows. And so can you just tell us a little bit about your journey into the real estate industry and why you chose real estate as your profession?
Okay. Actually, part of this story, you might not know this, but when my parents started a magazine back in 1988. Yeah, they had a magazine. It was called Sister to Sister Magazine. My mom worked at BET when it was a startup.
Your parents started Sister to Sister
Oh, you didn't know this? Okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, keep going.
So she actually started working. Sorry, hold on. She didn't start in 1980. She started a little bit later, but she worked at BT when it was a startup company. So there was 15 employees when she worked there, and she was Bob Johnson's secretary. She started off as a secretary for Bob Johnson, but it was such a small little group that everybody had 10 job month, as the head leads would say. And so she was the secretary / producer of Video Soul and Video LP, which was, for all of you young people out there, that was one of the first Black video shows where they played videos, music videos, which now everybody just knows them on YouTube, but back then they used to be on TV. And so she was producer of that show with Donnie Simpson, who was a radio personality and TV personality, and she used to book the artists. And back then they didn't have a whole lot of places to place their videos, and so my mom made a bunch of connections by working there, and she would actually convince some of the artists to make videos because they Black artists didn't even really have a big desire to make videos, right? Because MTV wasn't playing it. MTV is not what you think of 10, 20 years ago, I guess, because now you think of it as regular, just TV shows. But MTV wasn't playing Black videos. Music wasn't as integrated back then as it is now.
Right.
And so, she really made her connection doing that. And then she hated working there. Exactly. So she left there. She decided to start a trade magazine, trade publication, Sister to Sister. Her and her sister used to write it. And from there, it was just a industry trade newsletter. And then my dad, who was a PhD economist, he quit his job because so my dad is a family of, out of 7 people, he's the only one who graduated from college.
Okay.
And a doctor, and so he was like the shining crown jewel of the family. And when they found out he quit his job to go help my mom run this magazine, they were so disappointed. They probably hated my mom for that secretly. Some not so secretly, but Yeah, so they started this magazine. And this brings it back. You probably like, why are you talking about this? But this brings it back to your question you just asked. What maybe what was the background that kind of got me into real estate? So after I graduated from college, I came and worked at the magazine. The magazine pretty much either broke even or lost money every year out of the 28 years they had it almost. I think maybe one or two profitable years. But the profit margin on it was so slim. Uh, that was one thing that I learned. What I learned from working there was pretty much what not to do. What I didn't want to do, I should say,
Mm,
uh, for my career. I didn't want to have anything with such low profit margins. That's number one.
okay.
I didn't want to work with anything that was uh, I don't want to say nothing that was, but magazines are such a discretionary expense for people, you know? Like you can do with or without a magazine.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I know that kind of, because when times get rough, that's going to be the first thing they cut out of their budget, you know? So I know I didn't want that. Didn't have a lot of control over everything because in the magazine industry, you guys would not probably believe this, but the way it works is that if you're selling the magazine for $3, you then have to give it to a distributor. The distributor basically makes sure everybody gets it. They take automatically 10% of your 10 to 15% of your money right off the top, right? So now you're taking your $3 and reducing that by 30 cents. Then the wholesalers, which are the people who basically put the magazines into the stores, they wanted 40%.
Mm,
Right. And then the retailer, the retailer wants another 15%. So at the end of the day, out of a $3 magazine, we were definitely seeing less than $1, and cost of paper rising. Anyway, it was just a mess. And so I saw the writing on the wall. And so when the housing market tanked in 2009, I saw my opportunity to get into real estate, because one, I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things that I hated, because even before I did this jump into real estate, I
mhm.
was also a party promoter in DC,
Okay.
which you did know that part. I wasn't your typical party promoter because I donated all the money to charity, but uh, everything else that goes along with being a party promoter, that was me. And even in that industry, the lesson that I learned there that I did not like is I would work so hard every week to throw this big party. It will be a success, but the next day you're back at zero again. I mean, you have your email list and everything, but every event you gotta rev up, get all these people into the door, and then start all over again. And so that formula is exactly what made me get into real estate, because I saw that if X equals all of the effort that you put into getting your success or whatever the outcome you're looking for, being Y, whenever X stopped, Y stopped.
Mm,
And so I was like, I do not like that formula. So working backwards from there, I was like, okay, what can I do where if X stops, Y keeps going? And I worked backwards because I was kind of lazy. I was like, I don't want a boss, I don't want coworkers, I don't want an alarm clock. And I came over real estate. That was a long answer. I will try to be shorter with the long answer.
you don't need to be shorter. But wow, how unexpected that you would share some of the things that you said. Like I really uh wow. I mean, I definitely grew up with Sister to Sister magazine. That is crazy. And
Mm.
Video Soul.
Yeah.
So definitely wow. It's crazy that I didn't know this about you. Okay. So your next question you answered. So let's skip over that. Okay, so how do you currently generate leads for your real estate business? How do you generate customers?
Okay, so I just gave you a big background, so I could actually refer to it now. So I used to be a party promoter. So a lot of people in the city knew me. Plus, I'm an old head now, and so a lot of the people, my peer group, DC is a very powerful place. A lot of people underestimate, including myself, underestimate how much power there is in this city.
Mhm.
When I used to throw parties, I would see, we would have our regulars, and they would be drunk at the bar. I was like, oh, that's just drunk Ned at the bar. But come to find out, drunk Ned at the bar is like a VP at
Mhm.
or I can't tell you how many times I found that out. And the mistake that I made when I was throwing parties is that I never asked anybody what they did. I thought it was kind of not rude, but kind of a using thing. Like, hey, what do you do? I'm trying to figure out if I can, But that was a total mistake. I should have been doing that the entire time because not only can you find opportunities of what they can do for you, but you can also a lot of times do stuff for them. But if you guys don't exchange that information about what you do, like neither one, it's like two ships passing in the night, you know. So anyway, yes, I have a lot of contacts from the days I used to throw parties. I would say that that is a big source of it. But the second big source, and it is right up your alley, social media, even though I don't post as much as I should or I want to, it's not natural for me. My natural tendency is to be more introverted, low key. But my mom was gonna kill me for this. But my mom's main talent above anything else that she can do is her ability to network, and I would say if you said, okay, put her talent category, just overall talent category into a pie chart, I would say networking will be 95% of it. And she has some other little skills here. And so looking at my mom and how far she got in life with really just having that one skill. I mean, because she can go into a room, not know anybody in there. It could be CEOs, it could be people who just got out of jail, didn't matter. She will walk out of that room knowing everybody's name, calling
Mhm.
some nickname for everybody, and,
Mhm.
and all those people like calling her mom or something. She just had this ability, and I wasn't born with that. My natural state was always to be kind of observer, laid back in the kind of more of a wallflower type, But seeing that my mom did what she did, I was like, okay, I gotta get over that. And so I really worked on it. And I had this friend, I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want him to get credit for this, but I had this friend who was really, really social, and we would go out and I would just listen to what he said and then just say the same thing he said. So, but the thing about being social is it's something you can practice. You don't have
Yeah.
to. Yeah, and so I got so good at it that I became better than him, and that's how I got into throwing the parties. Because I was like, man, I'm meeting so many people. I used to go out 4 nights a week in DC, and I would I would never leave an event until I met the two most interesting people in that place. And yeah, my batting average was I when I think about what I used to do now, I can't believe it because I can't do it anymore. But it was because I was in that repetition and practice of it back then. But so yes, that's throwing the parties is another way. Being gregarious and getting out of your shell, getting out of your way, because a lot of times like I was like, oh man, I don't want to post, man. I hate when people like post everything about themselves. But if you're in business, it actually helps. I mean, if somebody
Yeah.
told you, yeah, if somebody said, hey, you can have a free TV station to advertise whatever you want, any of your businesses you want, here you go. Would you not use it? Because that's essentially what you're doing. So
Free
uh
advertising. Yes. Yes. And people want to do business with people they like, people they relate to.
exactly.
And that's who they follow. They either follow people who they relate to or who they aspire to be like. And
that
so, yeah.
that is so true. And that's one of the things by the way, this is another reason I love this industry, is because if you really get into it and you decide to become a real estate agent or anything like that, and you do the studying of what it means to become, they teach you a lot about psychology. And what I learned, and this is some of the stuff that when I first got into real estate, I was like, I'm really fascinated with this industry, because they taught us, they said our DNA is actually programmed to, when you see a face that looks unfamiliar, all the way back from our Neanderthal days, our amygdala is programmed to say potential danger. That's the first reaction. The
Mm,
more you see that face, that danger threat lowers, lower, 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 lower.
mm.
So same thing. It doesn't matter if they seen you in real life or they seen you on a computer. So that, going back to what the end goal is, they know and like you. They see you a lot of times, they feel like they know you. Why do people cry when Michael Jackson died? They
Mm-hmm.
never saw this person, and they're never met him
Exactly.
in their life.
Exactly.
Yeah,
People feel so connected to the people that they're following because you're following their life a lot of times, and you're seeing their kids, you're seeing their house, you're seeing their family, you're seeing their husbands or wives, you're seeing all the trips they're taking, the food they're eating, everything. You feel like you know these people. You feel like they're your sister or brother or best friend. I always find it so interesting how people, I'll look at comments on people's posts and they'll say sis or something like that. Call somebody sis. I had somebody do that the other day. I was at a restaurant by myself at the bar getting food, and the lady, and there was a couple sitting next to me, and the lady said something to me because they had an issue with their food, and I asked them a question. So she said something to me after that and called me sis, and it blew my mind because I was like, she doesn't even know my name. And that is what people do on social media.
yeah,
They really feel a connection. It's like a long distance relationship
yeah.
where you
No,
never meet the person and you just are connecting. And I know there's probably been times that I know I've done this before where I've built friendships with people from social media. I mean, some of our mutual friends I met through social media and we became friends because, we saw similarities in our lifestyles or interests. And so we ended up saying, hey, why don't we, get together? So it is enhancing the opportunities for networking for sure, which is why it's called a social media network, right? Because that's what you're doing. So I think you've answered the question of how has networking played into the growth of your business, and you've also answered that question a lot for our listeners too, of how they can leverage networking for growing their business offline and online, right? And so, and real estate is such a relationship based sales industry. It's a lot more reliant on relationships than a lot of other industries because of the level of trust that has to be created in order for people to actually work with you to represent them on a deal or a purchase or a sale of a property. And so, what other things can you share in terms of your lessons you've learned around relationship based selling? So, what are some challenges or lessons you've learned as you meet people who maybe you don't know well? Is there anything you can share about like how you've gone from meeting someone to building that trust to the point that they want to work with you?
So in this industry, trust is really big, because you got to think about it this way. If somebody is, unless they're a big investor, most of the times, if you're dealing with them on a transaction, this is going to be one of probably three biggest transactions they ever make in their entire life. This is something they've aspired to since they were probably a teenager, that one day I'm going to buy a house. and you're working with them, it's going to be their realtor, it's going to be their pastor, whoever marries them, and somebody who delivers their baby. Like these are like their big quintessential moments in their life, and they're trusting you to like handle their dream, their finances, everything. So now that you put that in this perspective, you can see why it's very hard to convince somebody who doesn't know you at all that you are the person to handle this person's dreams. So shout out to all of the realtors out there. I'm going to call them the real realtors who are
The
just
full-time realtors.
yeah, who will just pounding the pavement every day, calling people who don't know them, cold calling, and trying to convince them that, hey, I am the person for you. Because for me, I'm not gonna say unfair advantage, but I have a big advantage over somebody who just moved to DC, doesn't know anybody, and starting everything from scratch, right? Because they got to get over that hurdle of having them trust them. And then the second hurdle is proving to them that they're competent, that they can actually. And so the big the big hurdle for me is, man, that is such a hustle. For me, I can just call my database, and that will generate sales. I actually stopped doing that probably in the last year and a half because I really wanted to focus on my property management business, because even though it makes less money, it has the most possibility to be an automated business. I have a bigger goal with my property management business, put it that way. And it also does eventually lead into sales. So it is a lead generation source. But man, it takes a lot of time. I mean, every day I'm basically putting out at least 1 to 2 fires, sometimes literally. So I would say that the challenges for me are going to be are definitely work-life balance. I mean, I saw this, the Instagram algorithm is so on point sometimes. They sent me this, and I talked to another one of my buddies who's an entrepreneur. He got the same video. I think it's an interview being done with TD Jakes. I think it was TD Jakes or somebody. And he's being interviewed, and he says a lot of, especially minorities, we get into business and we think that the route to go is work hard. You're like working from the morning to night. You're doing everything. You're the accountant. And he said, and we wound up having maybe 1 or 2 employees, but everything still revolves around you, that individual person. And you don't realize that, your business is never going to be bigger than what you probably are doing now, because everything's wrong. You only got 2 hands. You only got 24 hours in a day. Until you can scale this out and you can step away from that business, and that business keeps going for 2 months after you step away, he said, that's not, if you don't have it like that, it's not a business. It's a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm in a hustle property management business. I mean, I'm about to go overtime on quotes, but I saw another big developer here in DC. This guy, he says a lot of times we think we're really successful. I mean, we're making all these things happen, but if you take a step back and you look at the equation of what you're actually creating, you're actually exchanging time for money.
Exactly.
And if you really think about that, that is not a good equation.
It's not.
Listen, I was like, I'm not doing it right for my property management business. So right now, I'm just focusing on trying to get this automated and scale, because that's what all businesses are all about. How can you scale it up?
Right.
Everybody knows what I'm talking
How
about.
can you duplicate yourself either through another human or a machine?
Yep, exactly. And
That
that's not my natural. It's not my natural tendency. It's not my natural state. My natural state is, oh, there's something that needs to be done. Let me do it. And even when my staff members I'm messing up something. I'm like, all right, just send it to me. I'll do it, which is an absolute wrong way to go. I'm still working on and improving my life and my skill set on that category.
So that brings me to the next question, which is, what are some challenges you faced on the operations side of your business regarding improving automation and building systems?
So,
So,
yeah,
so let's deep dive into this a little bit. So
I,
right now, you just said that, the people that currently work with you in this business and in your other businesses, you are taking on the project to complete it rather than teaching how you make decisions and what your quality control standards are, so that the person that you're teaching or the person you're delegating the task to can actually complete the task without your input and taking the task from them. So in terms of automation versus hiring more people, why did you say that you are trying to automate versus hire new people? And I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear it from you.
uh, so you're probably not gonna guess the answer, but by the way, I love the way you just phrased this, because a lot of it is changing your perspective on what your mission is as a business owner. Because uh, for me, a lot of times I think my mission is to accomplish the job. If I'm working on a construction project, it's to finish the job. If I'm working on property management, it's to make sure all the client. But that's not the mission. The mission is to get it automated and somebody else can do it. That is the actual mission. And when you don't have that clear in your mind, you wind up getting sucked into it, and you're the actual machine. Or the cog in the wheel. But to answer your question, why am I trying to automate it myself
Versus
hiring
hiring
somebody else? And
versus hiring some multiple people to scale the business. Because
that,
like I said, you can either scale by hiring or you can scale by automation or a combination of the two. So you said automation is your path forward to scaling. Why did you pick automation versus humans?
so I actually want to do both. But what I wound up doing, because there's a theory that I like, but the theory goes, if you're really good at something and you have weaknesses, you can either work really hard to improve those weaknesses, or you can stick with what you're really good at and hire somebody to do those weaknesses, right?
Absolutely.
So unfortunately for me, I have two weaknesses. My weakness is that I am not properly scaling, and like I said, my focus is wrong. My focus is getting a job done versus scaling. My second weakness is I'm going to probably put it into hiring. I've done some hiring which has turned really great. I really like my staff I have now. I love them. They're all great, but unfortunately, they're a lot like me, except for one of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the same mindset as I am. How do I get the job done? Versus focusing everything on, how do we get it so that the job is automated, no mistakes, and less people oriented. So that is my problem. And there's a third problem that I have that I created for myself this year, which is going back to the question you asked previously about challenges. A lot of times in real estate, you can make a ton of money in this industry, but it's tied into properties, right? So it's not like you just go and it's right there in your bank account. Yeah, I have line of credits and everything, but those are for business. I rarely would use my line of credit to, buy something that I want or hire an employee or anything like that, right? So right now I'm experiencing a cash flow issue. because I got my money tied up to a bunch of projects, and then all of a sudden, my mom in New York calls me up and says, "Hey, my apartment unit is turning into a co-op. I need to buy. I need you to buy this for me in cash because it has to be me. It can't be me and you. It has to be me." So this has created a situation for me where and a lot of times you'll have situations where you can see great opportunities for yourself, but you can't do them because you don't have the cash flow anymore to do it. And I'm definitely in that. This is my first year really experiencing this in a while. It is great for me to experience this again because I had gotten lazy. I wasn't keeping up with my finances, like, oh, I got it. I wasn't even thinking about expenses. But this is definitely refocused where my mind is. And I think this was meant for me to happen the way it is.
Okay. So let's go back to scaling, right? So you said that automation. So, well, let me back up one step. So you said that the mission should be scaling the business and building an automation. But why is that your mission? I guess what I'm trying to get out of you is, what is your exit strategy?
So it's my mission because of that formula that I said earlier, which took me forever to just figure this out, that exchange of time and money is not a good equation for me. It might be for some people, because some people probably love to work and they feel totally fulfilled by it. But I'm at that stage now. Maybe it's a midlife crisis, maybe, but I want to experience more in life than just work now, which has mostly been my focus this entire time. Um, so that's why the main reason. My exit strategy. So this is so funny, man. In college, I told everybody that I was going to retire at age 35. No, but I actually did it. I did it at 36. I turned 36. Yeah, my parents were paying me $42,000 a year when I was working at the magazine. I bought two apartment buildings when the market crashed in 2010, and after that, I pretty much had $85,000 of cash flow coming in from those two buildings. And so I was like, okay, I could either sit at home and make $85,000, or I could work for my parents to make 42. So told my parents peace, quit the job, and I became a couch potato for a year and a half. And I hated it. And it's so funny because I worked my whole life to get to that point, and I got there, and I literally felt like I was dying. I now know why people were.
Never, our goals and aspirations never seem to be what we think they're going to be when we actually achieve them.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I was in for a rude awakening there. I literally thought I was dying. So I came out of that like gangbusters. The next year, I think I bought 16 houses. It went in 2 years, yeah. So
And do
um,
you leverage your income from those properties to do that, or?
yeah. So basically, I sold one apartment building, and I made 200 and some change, $200,000, right? And I had already saved up like another 100, so I was working with 300 grand. And back in those days, when I came out of retirement, nobody was going to the auctions, which is not the case anymore. I was going to the auctions. Every auction there was in DC, I was there. Like, you wouldn't go there and not see my face. And we discovered this, like, me and this my partner. He actually discovered it. I'm gonna give him credit. This guy, I don't know if he wanted me to say his name, but anyway, he discovered this way of buying properties for $10,000 or less. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to do it, but you have to partner with me. You can never compete with me.
So let's wrap it up. We have a couple more questions. Okay, so What is the single biggest lesson you've learned as an entrepreneur? So you shared a lot of lessons, a lot of challenges that you've had as you've grown and scaled your businesses. So what's the single biggest one that you're like, wow, if I would have known that when I started, I would have saved myself so much heartache.
Okay. So I would say that a lot of the things that I've already talked about, which were, make sure that whatever you're doing, you can scale it out. That's the number one thing that I would say you could do. The number two thing I would say, in terms of your marketing for yourself, this has been my formula for everything since I was throwing parties up to now. Make sure that when you're trying to market something, you tell a story. And what I mean by that is, don't just say, hey, I got these shirts I'm trying to sell, they're blah, blah, blah. But talk about how you came up with to the point of selling shirts, make sure that people can identify, because just like what we were talking about earlier, in terms of people were crying when Michael Jackson died, it's because they knew his story. People, the way the brain naturally works is they want to see, you started it off, they want to see what happens at the end. The brain naturally wants to close loops. So that's number two. Number three, and this is a lesson that I am just now, and I put this book next to my desk because, can I do a quick little plug? This book here. If you want to get to the point of actually not letting your business kind of dominate your life, and I'm not here yet. I'm not mastering this book right now. I am, but even with me not mastering, this has helped a lot. Somebody who I know is a big, I shout out Ryan Butler. He gave me this book and was like, hey, this is like the Bible. And I'll give you just, I mean, it's so many great tips in here, but I'll say the biggest thing in here is what I wasn't doing. If you have a whole universe of tasks that you have to do, make sure they're not in different places. So some people will have their calendar on their phone. Some people will have a real calendar. They'll have notes. They have to-do lists. And when all those things are spread out like that, they're going to be spread out in your brain just the same way. And that's where you're going to go through your day like, oh, I got to do something today. And, and it's always staying on your mind. So even when you're not working, you're working because you're thinking about work, right? And so if you ever get to the point where you have all this whole universe of tasks that you have to do into one place, one central place that you trust, that like, hey, at this time during the day, I'm going to tackle this thing, this part. And so that way, when you get incoming, you can just put it right here and you don't have to think about it again because you're like, oh, I just thought about it. I don't have to worry about it. I know tomorrow at 12 is the time I'm going to return all emails. So I'm not thinking about it while I'm here at the beach with my kids or whatever. So I would say that that's probably going to be that. Just do that one little task right there where you gather all your universe into one thing.
And where do you store all of your universe?
So I just read this book probably about a month ago. And so right now I'm putting all of my stuff goes here, and I carry this around with me. This is my iPad. And so
is it a checklist or is it in a calendar on your iPad? Where do you keep?
So it's different categories, right? So for emails, like let's say you get an email or you say, oh, I need to reply to that. It goes into like return emails that need to be returned. If it's something
in your email inbox as a folder. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And so everything has its own category. And so I have a time where I say, okay, I'm gonna tackle emails every day, 12 to 2. I'm gonna tackle appointments to people who call me, say they want to talk, 3 to 4, and that way, and I haven't perfected this yet, but I can definitely feel the difference right now.
I recommend an app called AkiFlow, AKIFLOW. AkiFlow lets you connect all of your places where you store various tasks, whether it be your calendar. So for example, my team uses Asana for us to assign tasks to each other, and they assign tasks to me, things I need to review and things like that in Asana. And then we also use Slack for internal communication. And then we have the email, which is a nightmare, right? So basically what you can do in AccuFlow is you can connect all those things, and you can drag things into your calendar that basically just time block tasks from various places into one single calendar. So that's a really good app to use, but I love that. I love that idea. But I think the biggest takeaway from what you said is about allowing yourself to be present in what you're doing at the time, because I definitely struggle with always having all my tasks in my mind. And so I'm never really giving 100% of my attention to anything, because I know I have this Rolodex, some long drawn out list of 8 million tasks that I have to do at any given time. And so that's being present is definitely something that I have to work on. So I like thinking about just allowing myself to take something off my mind and put it somewhere where I can put a pin in it and come back to it so I can focus on what I'm doing at the time.
Yeah.
So
You
excellent.
never do it unless you trust that system. So you got to make sure you stick to that system,
Yes.
okay. Because it might seem like a lot of work to time block. You're like, oh man, I'm gonna actually be locked into doing this during that time, and is the resistance that you're gonna naturally feel to that in the beginning. But once you get it down, it's freeing. It's more it's one of those mind tricks. You feel like you're getting locked down, but you're actually freeing yourself.
You are freeing yourself, and you're also freeing yourself to say no.
Yeah.
Because when you have that calendar blocked out, you can tell people, oh, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. I
Yeah.
don't have the time. I really don't. Like, I don't have the time. And so when you have that calendar blocked out, and you have even the tasks of managing your business, strategic direction for your business, delegation of tasks, reviewing all of the things, the communications and things, external and internal communications that you have. When you have all of that in a calendar, now you can tell people, hey, find time on my calendar. Oh, you need me to do something? Find time on my calendar, which may not be any time for a week or two available because of all the things you have going on.
Yeah.
But what a great conversation. And thank you so much for giving your time and telling your story with us and with our listeners today. So thank you so much.
Problem. And it's so funny. I was like, oh, this is gonna be so quick. We talked for a whole hour.
Easy to do. It's easy to do when it's just free flowing conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I learned so much about you, Russ. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't even get the chance to talk about how you extended the life of my party promotion days into even though I'm way past my prime in doing that. But you actually came in and because back when I used to throw events, it was all about who you knew, like how many good looking people can you bring to your event. And now it's how well can you do social media? How well can you put out a marketing package and tell a story? And we were able to, even though me and my partner Faseo, we do the biggest New Year's Eve. Actually, that is the biggest New Year's Eve event in DC every year. Nobody even knows that it's us that's doing it. They have no idea who I or Faseo are, but they know our event, and that's because of you. And, the marketing genius that you are. So thank you. I see now everybody's gonna hire you though. Now, oh man, I'm like,
no, I'm always the plug. I'm always the plug. I'm not ever gonna be out of reach. Yes, yep. You are definitely one of our favorite customers. So thank you for that.